The medal arrived in a gold frame. It had been engraved with a dedication in advance, as if the entire exchange had been choreographed before Maria Corina Machado ever set foot in the Oval Office. The inscription read, "Presented as a personal symbol of gratitude on behalf of the Venezuelan people in recognition of President Trump's principled and decisive action to secure a free Venezuela." Less than 3 months after winning the Nobel Peace Prize for her work promoting democracy in Venezuela, the 2025 laureate stood beside Donald Trump in the White House and handed him the 18-karat gold medal she had received in Oslo. The president, who had openly lobbied for the award, who had called it an embarrassment to Norway that he had not won, who had watched his administration criticize the committee when they chose someone else, now held the physical symbol of the honor in his hands. What happened next tells you everything you need to know about what this gesture actually purchased. Machado walked out of the White House carrying a Trump-branded swag bag. She had received no commitment on elections, no timetable for democracy, no endorsement of her leadership. The man she had just given her most prized possession continued to back her rival, Nicolas Maduro's former vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, as the person best positioned to run Venezuela. The woman who had risked her life fighting for democracy in her country had surrendered the highest recognition of that fight, and in exchange, she received a gift bag and a photograph. In Oslo, the reaction was immediate and visceral. Norwegian politicians and academics used words that rarely appear in the measured language of Nordic diplomacy: pathetic, meaningless, disrespectful, unbelievably embarrassing. A professor at the University of Oslo, who formerly served as state secretary in the Foreign Affairs Ministry, called it completely unheard of in the history of the prize. A former governing mayor of Oslo, now a member of parliament for the ruling Labour Party, warned that the prize had become so politicized and potentially dangerous that it could legitimize an anti-peace prize development. The Norwegian Nobel Committee issued a statement that managed to be both diplomatic and pointed. "A medal can change owners," the committee said, "but the title of a Nobel Peace Prize laureate cannot. Once a Nobel Prize is announced, it cannot be revoked, shared, or transferred to others. The decision is final and stands for all time." The committee had anticipated this. A week before Machado walked into the White House, when her intention to give Trump the medal became clear from her public statements, the committee released a preemptive clarification making these same points. They knew what was coming. They could not stop it. They could only make clear, for the historical record, that possessing a medal does not make someone a Nobel laureate. To understand why this gesture matters beyond its symbolic absurdity, you have to understand what Machado was trying to accomplish, what Trump has been seeking for years, and what the collision of those two ambitions reveals about the current state of American power and the international order that recognizes it. María Corina Machado spent years as the most prominent face of Venezuela's opposition to Nicolas Maduro. She crisscrossed the country ahead of the 2024 presidential elections, rallying millions of voters exhausted by 25 years of single-party rule. When the Maduro government barred her from running, a previously unknown former diplomat named Edmundo Gonzalez replaced her on the ballot. The opposition won. The regime declared otherwise. Machado went into hiding, emerging only to flee the country by sea in December, eventually arriving in Norway to accept the Nobel Prize that recognized her extraordinary civilian courage. Then came January 3, 2026. American forces conducted a military operation in Caracas. They extracted Maduro and his wife from a fortified compound inside the nation's largest military complex. Within hours, the former president was on a U.S. warship heading to New York to face charges of narco-terrorism. Trump announced the operation from Mar-a-Lago, describing it as one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might in history. Machado saw an opportunity. The dictator she had fought for years was gone. The country she had devoted her life to freeing was, at least theoretically, liberated. She immediately dedicated her Nobel Prize to Trump, praising his commitment to Venezuelan freedom. She began signaling through media appearances that she might give him the medal itself. The gesture was unmistakable in its calculation. Trump wanted recognition. She had recognition to give. Perhaps an exchange could be arranged. But Trump had already made his decision about Venezuela's future, and Machado was not part of it. Rather than installing the opposition leader who had won the election, rather than supporting the Nobel laureate who embodied the democratic aspirations of millions of Venezuelans, Trump chose to work with Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president under Maduro, the loyalist who had served the regime, The woman who, on the same day Machado was at the White House, met with CIA Director John Ratcliffe to discuss the transition. The administration's explanation was blunt. Machado did not have enough support or respect to lead the country. The White House press secretary said Trump had a realistic assessment of the situation. A senior official described Machado as so foaming at the mouth opposed to the current government that they did not want to risk the chaos her leadership might bring. This was the context in which Machado decided to give away her Nobel medal, not from a position of strength, from a position of desperation. She had won the prize for fighting Maduro. Trump had removed Maduro, and Trump had then sided with Maduro's allies over her. The gift was a gambit, an attempt to curry favor with a president whose appetite for recognition and flattery is well documented. If Trump wanted a Nobel Prize so badly that he had publicly complained about not receiving one, perhaps giving him the physical medal would soften his position. Perhaps it would remind him that she was the one the world had honored for the values he claimed to champion. It did not work. Trump accepted the medal. He posted on social media that Machado was a wonderful woman who had been through so much, that her gift was a wonderful gesture of mutual respect. He confirmed he intended to keep it. He said nothing about endorsing her leadership. He provided no timeline for elections. He gave no indication that his assessment of her viability had changed. In the days that followed, Machado held a press conference at the Heritage Foundation. She expressed confidence in an eventual democratic transition. She insisted there was no tension between her and Rodriguez. She stopped short of providing any details about what Trump had actually committed to or what she believed the United States should do next. She was deferential to the point of self-erasure, pivoting from every substantive question to vague assertions about her movement's mandate. She had surrendered the medal. She had received nothing in return, and she was still not going home. The Norwegian reaction to this spectacle exposed a deeper fracture in the relationship between the United States and one of its traditional allies. Norway is not simply the country that awards the Peace Prize. It is a NATO member, a close security partner, and a nation with significant economic ties to American markets. But those ties have been strained by a series of confrontations that have nothing to do with Venezuela and everything to do with how the current administration approaches international relationships. Earlier this year, Norway's sovereign wealth fund, the largest in the world at roughly $2.1 trillion, announced it would divest from Caterpillar shares. The decision was made by the fund's Ethics Council, which recommends exclusions based on criteria related to human rights and international law. Trump's supporters were incensed. The pressure became so intense that the Norwegian government suspended the Ethics Council that had made the recommendation. Simultaneously, Norway has been trying to negotiate relief from a 15% tariff imposed by the Trump administration as part of its global trade program. These negotiations continue without resolution. The relationship that once operated on assumptions of shared values and mutual respect has become transactional in ways that make Norwegian officials visibly uncomfortable. Against this backdrop, watching a Nobel laureate give her medal to Trump was more than an isolated embarrassment. It was a symbol of how American power now operates. A woman who had risked everything for democracy felt compelled to prostrate herself before an American president who had not supported her, who had sided with her adversaries, who wanted only the recognition she could provide. One Norwegian lawmaker captured the sentiment precisely. The fact that Trump accepts the medal says something about him as a type, he said. A classic scapegoat who will adorn himself with other people's awards and work. The Nobel Committee has wrestled with political pressure throughout its history. The Peace Prize in particular has generated controversy precisely because peace is political, and the committee's choices inevitably reflect judgments about which efforts toward peace deserve recognition. But the committee has maintained a principle that the prize itself, once awarded, belongs to history. The laureate is the laureate forever. No subsequent action can change that. Trump's approach to the Nobel Prize has been to treat it as something owed rather than something earned. He has claimed credit for resolving numerous wars during his second term. His administration argued before Machado was selected that it was well past time for him to receive the award. When the committee chose her instead, the White House responded that they had proved they place politics over peace. He has publicly called it an embarrassment to Norway that he has not won. This sense of entitlement helps explain why he accepted the medal without apparent hesitation. In his framing, the prize should have been his anyway. Machado was simply correcting an error. The committee's insistence that the honor cannot be transferred is, in this view, merely procedural noise that misses the essential point. But procedure is not noise. It is the structure that gives the prize meaning. The Nobel Peace Prize has value precisely because it is awarded by an independent committee according to established criteria, and once awarded, it cannot be bargained away. If medals could be traded like commodities, if laureates could transfer their honors to political patrons in exchange for favors, the prize would become worthless. Its prestige derives from its independence. What Machado did was not technically prohibited. The medal is a physical object. Physical objects can be given away. But what she did was unprecedented, and the unprecedented nature of the act reveals something about the pressures she faces and the dynamics of power she is navigating. She gave away her medal because she believed it might help her. She was wrong about that. And now she has neither the medal nor the political support she sought. The image that circulates from that day is telling. Trump in the Oval Office, holding the framed medal, grinning. Machado standing beside him, having just surrendered the highest honor she will ever receive. The dedication already engraved, as if the outcome had been predetermined. The whole scene arranged for the camera, for the social media post, for the projection of triumph that the current administration constructs around every interaction. And then Machado walking out with a branded swag bag. The Nobel laureate reduced to a visitor who received a gift shop token. The champion of Venezuelan democracy leaving with less than she brought. Trump's obsession with the Nobel Prize is well documented. A former aide in his first term said the president sees this prize as the ultimate capstone to how history will remember him. He nominated himself repeatedly through proxies. He complained publicly when others were chosen. He treated the award not as recognition of achievement, but as validation owed. This obsession has consequences for American foreign policy. If the president's decisions are influenced, even partly, by his desire for recognition, then the distribution of recognition becomes a tool of influence. Machado understood this. She reasoned that giving Trump what he wanted might change what he was willing to give her. The calculation was not irrational given what we know about how this president responds to flattery. But the calculation failed because Trump wanted something else more than he wanted the medal. He wanted stability in Venezuela. He wanted access to oil. He wanted a transition that could be managed through existing power structures rather than disrupted by an opposition leader whose commitment to democracy might complicate his plans. Machado's democracy advocacy was precisely what made her valuable to the Nobel Committee, and precisely what made her inconvenient to the Trump administration. Her refusal to compromise with the Maduro regime, her insistence on genuine democratic transition, her belief that the Venezuelan people should choose their own leaders through free elections, all of this was celebrated in Oslo and dismissed in Washington. The medal was supposed to bridge that gap. Instead, it exposed how wide the gap had become. In the weeks ahead, attention will shift to Venezuela itself. Delcy Rodriguez has delivered her first State of the Union address as acting president. She has promoted the resumption of diplomatic ties with the United States and advocated for opening the state oil industry to foreign investment. American forces continue seizing oil tankers in the Caribbean. The Trump administration has pledged to take control of Venezuelan crude sales. Machado remains in Washington, making the rounds on Capitol Hill, where she has found more enthusiastic allies among senators from both parties. She says she wants to return to Venezuela as soon as possible. She says she believes she will eventually be elected president. She says she is confident in an orderly transition to democracy, but she no longer has her Nobel medal, and she still does not have Trump's endorsement. The Norwegian Nobel Committee will announce the 2026 Peace Prize in October. Trump has been formally nominated by several world leaders and American lawmakers. His chances of winning, according to former Norwegian diplomats, have actually diminished rather than improved. Kåre Aas, who served as Norway's ambassador to the United States from 2013 to 2020, said the events of recent weeks have not helped his case. The Norwegians, as one observer noted, are extremely honest and transparent. If you go to a restaurant, even if you are an ambassador, you have to wait your turn. That is the type of society they have. The Nobel Committee does not respond well to pressure, and Trump has applied nothing but pressure. He called it an embarrassment to Norway that he has not won. He sent his administration to criticize the committee when they chose Machado. He accepted her medal as if it conferred something the committee had wrongly withheld. Each of these actions reinforced the perception that he views the prize as a possession to be obtained rather than an honor to be earned. In Oslo, they are watching. They are taking notes, and they are making their own judgments about what peace means and who has advanced it. The medal that now sits somewhere in the White House, that 18-karat gold disc with its inscription about principled and decisive action, is an artifact of a particular moment. A Nobel laureate in a desperate position. An American president with an insatiable appetite for recognition. A transaction that benefited neither party in the ways they hoped. Machado wanted support. She received a swag bag. Trump wanted validation. He received an object that the committee has made clear does not validate anything. The medal can change owners, they said. The title cannot. In the end, the gesture revealed more than it accomplished. It showed how the current American president understands recognition as something to be taken rather than bestowed. It showed how those who need his support calculate their approach through flattery and surrender rather than negotiation and partnership. It showed how the international institutions that confer legitimacy respond when their authority is challenged, with careful clarifications that reassert the principles even as they acknowledge their inability to prevent the spectacle. Norway remains in shock. The Nobel Committee has said what it needed to say. Machado continues her uncertain campaign for relevance. Trump has the medal on display somewhere, evidence of what he believes he deserved all along. And Venezuela waits. The dictatorship is gone. The dictator is in a New York detention facility. The future remains unwritten, contested between an opposition leader who gave away her greatest honor and a regime loyalist who gave nothing but received everything. That is what the medal purchased. A photograph and a swag bag, and the continued uncertainty of a nation whose liberation was declared, but whose democracy has not arrived.